We're going to talk about something very important for anyone who feels stuck in life. The topic of our discussion is, if you don't think this way, you'll always be a loser. Now, don't let that phrase scare you. What we're really diving into is the power of your mind and how your thoughts shape your reality. So, let's explore how shifting your thinking can transform your life. Imagine this. You have a dream, a goal, or a desire. It might be a new job, a healthier body, or a more fulfilling relationship. But no matter how hard you try, it feels like you're running into walls. Why is that? It often comes down to how we think. Our thoughts are incredibly powerful, and if we don't understand how to harness them correctly, we might find ourselves stuck in patterns that lead to disappointment. First, let's talk about what happens when you think in a certain way. Our brains are designed to follow a pattern. If you think negatively or feel stuck, your brain gets used to that. It's like a record that plays the same song over and over. The more you think a certain way, the stronger that pattern becomes. And if you're not careful, you'll find yourself repeating the same old patterns of failure and frustration. So what do we do about this? The key is to change your thought patterns. You see, when you think differently, you're not just changing your thoughts, you're actually changing your brain. Science shows that our brains are highly adaptable. This is called neuroplasticity. It means that you can literally rewire your brain by changing your thoughts and behaviors. Here's an example. Let's say you've always thought that you're not good enough. Every time you try something new, you hear that old voice in your head telling you that you're going to fail. This voice is a result of past experiences and negative self-talk. If you keep listening to it, your brain becomes conditioned to expect failure. But when you start thinking differently, believing in yourself, setting positive goals, and focusing on your strengths, you begin to shift that pattern. Your brain starts to create new neural pathways that support this new way of thinking. Over time, these new pathways become stronger, and your old patterns of thinking start to weaken. This process involves a few key steps. First, you have to become aware of your current thinking patterns. What are you telling yourself? Are you constantly doubting yourself? Are you stuck in a cycle of negative thoughts? Being aware of these patterns is the first step to changing them. Next, you need to practice new thinking habits. This might involve affirmations, visualization, or simply focusing on what you want rather than what you don't want. For example, if you're aiming for a new job, instead of thinking about all the reasons you might not get it, focus on the skills you bring to the table and how you can contribute to the company. Visualize yourself succeeding in the role. This doesn't mean ignoring reality. It means shifting your focus to what you want to achieve. Another important aspect of personal growth is managing your emotions. Emotions have a big impact on how we think and feel. When our emotions are not balanced, it can affect many parts of our lives. For example, if you're constantly stressed or anxious, your brain stays in a state of high alert. This constant state of alertness can make it hard for you to think clearly and make positive changes in your life. When you are stressed or anxious, your body reacts as if it is in danger. This is because your brain triggers the fight or flight response. This is a natural reaction that helps you deal with immediate threats. However, when this response is activated all the time, even for small issues, it can cause problems. Your brain and body are not designed to stay in this high alert state for long periods. If this happens, it can lead to difficulties in focusing, making decisions, and even affecting your overall health. To manage your emotions better, it's important to learn techniques that help you stay calm and focused. Practices such as meditation, deep breathing, and mindfulness can be very helpful. Let's explore each of these techniques a bit more. Meditation is a practice where you focus your mind to achieve a state of relaxation and clarity. It involves sitting quietly and concentrating on something specific, like your breath or a peaceful image. This helps calm your mind and reduces stress. Meditation can be done in many ways, and you don't need special equipment. Just find a quiet place, Sit comfortably and spend a few minutes each day focusing your mind. Over time, regular meditation can help you feel more centered and less reactive to stress. Deep breathing is another technique that can help you manage your emotions. When you are stressed, your breathing often becomes shallow and quick. Deep breathing involves taking slow, deep breaths to help calm your body and mind. To practice deep breathing, find a comfortable position, close your eyes, and take a deep breath in through your nose. Hold the breath for a few seconds and then slowly exhale through your mouth. Repeat this process several times. Deep breathing helps activate the body's relaxation response, which can reduce stress and anxiety. Mindfulness is the practice of paying attention to the present moment without judgment. It means being aware of your thoughts, feelings, and sensations as they happen. By practicing mindfulness, you can observe your emotions without getting overwhelmed by them. For example, if you feel anxious, mindfulness helps you recognize that feeling without letting it control you. You might notice how your body feels or what thoughts are running through your mind. By being aware of these things, you can learn to manage your reactions and respond in a calmer way. Managing your emotions also involves understanding what triggers your stress or anxiety. Sometimes we react to situations based on past experiences or habits. For example, if you've had a stressful day at work, you might come home and snap at your family. By understanding what triggers these emotional reactions, you can start to address them. You might find that certain situations or people increase your stress levels. Once you recognize these triggers, you can work on strategies to handle them better or avoid them when possible. Another important aspect of managing emotions is self-care. Taking care of yourself physically and emotionally helps build resilience against stress. This includes getting enough sleep, eating a balanced diet, and exercising regularly. When you take care of your body, you are better able to handle emotional challenges. Additionally, engaging in activities you enjoy, such as hobbies or spending time with loved ones, can help boost your mood and reduce stress. You see, stress is a major disruptor. When you're stressed, your brain and body are in a state of imbalance. This is known as the stress response. In the short term, this response can be helpful. It helps you react quickly in dangerous situations. But if you're constantly in this state, it becomes harmful. Your body and brain get stuck in a cycle of stress, which can lead to a range of health issues and prevent you from achieving your goals. To break this cycle, you need to practice stress management techniques. This could include relaxation exercises, physical activity, or anything that helps you feel calm and centered. When you manage your stress, you create a more balanced state where you can think more clearly and make better decisions. Now let's talk about the role of mental rehearsal. This is a powerful tool that can help you change your thinking patterns and achieve your goals. Mental rehearsal involves vividly imagining yourself achieving your goals or performing a task successfully. It's like a mental practice session. By repeatedly visualizing yourself succeeding, you create new neural pathways in your brain. This makes it easier for you to achieve those goals in real life. Here's a simple exercise. Close your eyes and imagine yourself in a situation where you're performing at your best. See yourself achieving your goal, whether it's giving a great presentation, winning a competition, or having a successful conversation. Imagine every detail, how it feels, what you see, what you hear. The more vivid and detailed your mental rehearsal, the more effective it will be. Studies have shown that mental rehearsal can be as effective as physical practice in some cases. For example, athletes who mentally rehearse their performances often show improvements in their actual performances. The same principle applies to everyday goals and challenges. By mentally rehearsing your success, you're preparing your brain and body to achieve it. But let's not forget the importance of action. Thinking positively and visualizing success are powerful, but they need to be combined with action. You can't just think your way to success. You have to take practical steps toward your goals. This means setting clear goals, making plans, and taking consistent action. One of the biggest challenges people face is breaking free from their old habits and thought patterns. This is not an easy task, and it's something many people struggle with. Our brains are like well-trodden paths in a forest. Once we start walking a certain way, it becomes the easiest route to follow. This is because our brains are wired to stick with what's familiar. Even if those familiar things are not helping us or are actually harmful, it can still be comforting because we know what to expect. Let's break this down a bit more. Imagine you've been doing something the same way for years. It could be a daily routine, a way of reacting to stress, or even a way of thinking about yourself. This routine or way of thinking becomes a habit. Habits are powerful because they become automatic over time. When we get used to doing something a certain way, our brain forms pathways that make it easier for us to keep doing things that way. This is why habits are hard to change. Even if these habits are not beneficial, the brain still finds comfort in them because they are familiar. For example, if you've always reacted to stress by eating junk food or getting angry, that's your brain's familiar pattern. It's what it knows best. Even if you know that these reactions are not helping you, they feel comfortable because they are predictable. The brain prefers these predictable patterns because they reduce the amount of effort needed to make decisions and take action. However, if you want to create real change in your life, you need to step outside of this comfort zone. What does it mean to step outside your comfort zone? It means you need to be willing to try new things and think in new ways. This can be scary and uncomfortable because it involves uncertainty. When you step outside of what you're used to, you're entering a new territory where you don't have a clear map. This can make you feel anxious or worried. To start changing your habits, it helps to be aware of what you're trying to change. For instance, if you want to stop reacting to stress with anger, you first need to recognize when and why you get angry. This awareness is the first step towards making a change. Once you're aware, you can begin to practice new ways of responding to stress. Instead of getting angry, you might try taking deep breaths or going for a walk. These new actions will feel awkward at first, but with time, they can become new habits. Another important part of stepping outside your comfort zone is learning to embrace new ways of thinking. If you have always believed that you are not good enough or that you can't achieve your goals, changing these beliefs can be challenging. You need to start believing in new possibilities for yourself. This might involve affirmations, positive self-talk, or visualizing your success. By consistently thinking positively and believing in your potential, you begin to create new pathways in your brain that support these new beliefs. Change also involves taking action. It's not enough to just think differently. You need to act on those new thoughts. For example, if you want to be healthier, you need to start making healthier choices, such as eating better and exercising. Even if it feels uncomfortable at first, taking these actions is crucial for creating lasting change. The more you practice these new behaviors, the more they will become part of your new routine. This process takes time and effort. It's not about making a quick change, but about gradually shifting your mindset and behavior. As you continue to practice new thoughts and actions, you'll start to see results. Your brain will rewire itself to support your new way of thinking, and you'll begin to experience different outcomes in your life. You are the creator of your reality. The thoughts you think and the beliefs you hold shape your experiences. If you want to break free from patterns of failure and disappointment, you need to change the way you think. Embrace a mindset of possibility, focus on what you want to achieve, and take consistent action toward your goals. Biological mold. It's difficult because most people don't know that they have within their reach all the tools to do it because they have, number 3, been conditioned on some level to believe that the new hairstyle or the new type of beer they're going to drink or the sports car or whatever it is going to change their state, and that's the hypnosis. And when I wrote The Placebo, You Are the Placebo, the biggest thing that I walked away with after writing that book was how hypnotized and programmed we really are. And that's bothered me ever since I wrote the book, because people watch things in their external environment and they accept, believe, and surrender to that information without any analysis, and they're programmed. And so when you and I start waking up and say no to those programs, and we start to think that we're maybe a little bit more unlimited than we're given credit for, and it's not driven for profits or self-interest, but when people start to wake up and say, hey, I healed myself of this condition, I healed myself of Parkinson's, I healed myself of lupus, I healed myself of cancer, I healed myself of rheumatoid arthritis, I've healed myself of chronic pain, I healed myself of food allergies. Hey, yeah, I was abused as a child. Yeah, that's right, I was beat up by a violent father, and I lived in vulnerability and fear for the last 25 years. But that fear has signaled the wrong gene, and I developed this genetic condition. It's not enough to just have a clear intention, because clear intentions have very little effect on the nature of reality. Most people don't know that they're moving in and out of the quantum field 7.8 times per second, that you're vibrating in and out of the field all the time, and every time you leave, you disappear, and when you come back, you disappear into that field of information, and you come back with information. But if you go out as the same person, you don't bring any new information back. Are you with me? If you look at quantum physics, the physics of possibility, it's really talking about the spiritual aspect of ourselves, because you couldn't explain a miracle, you couldn't explain a biological process, you couldn't explain a simple healing of a cut at this point without understanding the quantum model of reality, and that there are particles, which are matter, it's you and I and everything in this physical world. And then there's energy, and that energy has a consciousness, it has an awareness, and that energy is a field of information that we are an extension of, that we have access to, and that we spend so much of our life looking outside of ourselves instead of looking inside of ourselves, and that we are really conditioned to look just for particles and matter instead of energy and information. And truly, when people reach the end of their beliefs or they're facing crisis in their life, that's the moment they start to turn within and start to ask the bigger questions. And if you were astute enough to look at this in moments of contemplation, if you were wanting to hide God anywhere, it would be a good place to hide. It would be within the human being, because everybody's looking outside of themselves, and we look for reasons to change and regulate our emotional states. We think that things and people and external things will really fulfill emotions that we're trying to change within us, and that truly when we start to really investigate who we are and look to see how we do that and demystify it, I think once we start to demystify it, it can become a skill. And so Einstein was a super cool guy because he spent a lot of time inward, and at 12 years old, he asked himself this simple question: if I ride my bicycle at the speed of light and I turn my lamp on, I turn my headlight on, will it go on? So he thought about that question every single day of his life. Every day of his life, he would go out in a boat on a lake as a child and lay on his back in the boat and look up at the sky and think about this. And he was building models of understanding. He was working his best to be able to figure out how light and energy were related. He did it for 10 years. He was possessed by the concept. And finally, he was working as a third-rate clerk in a Swiss patent office, and he was watching this man fix the roof across the way. And he just paused for a moment, and he was watching him, and the moment he was watching him, he got this incredible vision, and he understood how light and energy were related. It was a very abstract vision, and it was so abstract and so dimensional that he had to go back to school to learn the mathematics to be able to explain what he saw. And so it became very interesting, because when Einstein published his papers on relativity, he didn't say like, hey, this person said this and this person said this, and I'm going to footnote this person. He just said, ladies and gentlemen, this is how it is. And it rocked the scientific community because he didn't really need anybody else as a reference. He had a discovery. And his discovery was so unique, and his brain really was wired for the understanding of light, and light was the ceiling of this reality. And so Einstein and Planck started doing these really interesting experiments where they were taking energy and they were putting energetic impulses into metals. And what they were looking to see is if electrons behave the same way as the very large. In other words, when an apple falls from the tree, it falls in a very specific way. It falls towards the center. It falls towards the larger body. So he reasoned, well, if we disturb electrons, and him and Planck were doing these experiments, if we disturb these electrons, then they should fall just like an apple falling from the tree towards the nucleus. It should be predictable, just like it's predictable in Newtonian physics and classical physics. Well, when they started disturbing the electrons, something very unusual happened. The electron gained energy, then it lost energy, and it gained energy, and it lost energy. And it gained energy, and it lost energy. And instead of it falling like a ball rolling down a hill, it was like a ball rolling down steps. All of a sudden, they became very aware that the subatomic world, the very tiny, didn't behave like the very large world. And so then they started to look for the electron. They started to try to measure it, and everywhere they looked for it, it appeared. And when they turned their back on it, and they no longer looked to measure it, it went from a particle that collapsed, called collapsing the wave function, back into energy. Now, this was a revolutionary moment because this meant that subjective mind, your mind has an effect on the objective world. That mind and matter are somehow correlated. And so this birth of quantum physics came along. And this quantum physics experiments say that you cannot do a quantum physics experiment without an observer around. In other words, a mind always has to be present because it will influence the outcome. You with me? So now that invisible field of spirit, that invisible field of information and energy, somehow you as an individual can influence the nature of reality with your mind. So now Einstein had a lot of trouble with this because he said God doesn't play dice and it doesn't work like this, but his brain was wired for light. And so he had the abstraction and he was getting the download of information, understanding the field of light. And the quantum physicists were saying, well, actually, there's a field of information beyond space and time, beyond light, where everything is unified. You can take two photons that have been somehow related in a specific atom and shoot them to the opposite ends of the universe. And the moment you affect one photon at the exact same time, the other one is affected. So they were being connected or affected in a realm faster than the speed of light. In other words, it would take time if you affected one for the other one to be affected. But if they were beginning to be affected at the exact same time, they were connected in a realm beyond physical reality. Are you with me? And so when the movie What the Bleep came out, and we basically made an effort to show that your mind has an effect on reality, and that in order for you to begin to change your reality, you got to change your mind and change the way you live your life. And we wanted people to become inspired by the process of creation, really give it a shot. And that independent of your gender, of your race, of the color of your skin, of your intellectual ability, independent of your past, independent of your age, that on some level we are all divine creators. And that these models of reality that have separated individuals have all been built on human beings living in a very limited state of mind. And so when quantum physics was born and the whole concept of reality began to unfold, people started to really challenge the nature of reality and that concept that you are somehow connected because you are made of photons and atoms and electrons, that on some level you are an organization, a community of 70 trillion to 120 trillion cells, and all of those cells are made up of atoms and molecules and chemicals. And all of those are working in a coherent form to express yourself as a physical body. Some of the research shows that, 90% of the thoughts that we think on a daily basis are the same thoughts as the day before. So if you think that your thoughts have something to do with your destiny, and 90% of your thoughts are the same known thoughts that you're always thinking, then your life should stay the same. Because the same thoughts lead to the same choices. The same choices lead to the same behaviors. Same behaviors create the same experiences. The same experiences produce the same emotions. Those same emotions tend to influence the way we think. And our biology, our neurocircuitry, our neurochemistry, our hormones, and even our gene expression is equal to how we think, how we act, and how we feel. And how you think, how you act, and how you feel is called your personality. And your personality creates your personal reality. That's it. So then it makes sense then. If you want to create a new personal reality, a new life, you're going to have to change your personality. And you've got to start thinking about what you've been thinking about and change it. You've got to become aware of your unconscious habits and behaviors, even how you speak. Then you have to look at the emotions that you live by every single day and decide, do these emotions belong in my future? So many people try to create a new life as the same person. In order to create a new personal reality, you've got to change your personality. So the principle in neuroscience says that nerve cells that fire together wire together. Thinking the same way, making the same choices, demonstrating the same actions, creating the same experiences that stamp the same networks of neurons into the same patterns, all for the familiar feeling called you. And you do that for 10 years in a row. You're going to hardwire your brain into a very finite signature because you're firing and wiring that way. And that box in the brain, that becomes our personality, becomes our identity. And by the time we're 35 years old, for the most part, we've done something so many times that the body now knows how to do it as well as the mind. And that's a habit. So we have these unconscious programs of behaviors, automatic habits, redundant emotional reactions, hardwired beliefs, perceptions, attitudes that function just like a computer program. You press go and it runs automatically. So then when it comes time to change, thinking positively is going to do nothing because your body has been conditioned for the most part into a program in the past. So the thought never makes it to the body because the body's on a different program. So how do we begin to influence the body so that the thought actually produces some type of change? So think about it. If you think an unhappy thought, you're going to feel unhappy. If you think you're a failure, you're going to feel like a failure. Once you feel like a failure, you're going to think you're a failure. And people get caught in these loops of thinking and feeling and feeling and thinking. And that redundancy is a conditioning process because all you need is an image or a picture or a thought and a feeling, a response, stimulus response. And so the people tend to condition their brain and body into the past. And so when it comes time to change, you got to leave that familiar territory. And any choice that you make, if you said, hey, I'm going to eat a better diet, I'm going to wake up early and work out, I'm going to do meditation, the moment you decide to do something differently, get ready because it's going to feel uncomfortable. It's going to feel unfamiliar. There's going to be some uncertainty. You're not going to be able to predict the next moment. That means you've left your known biology and you're stepping into the unknown. Now, theoretically, that sounds great, but if the body has been conditioned into a familiar feeling, it's in the known. The moment you take it outside the familiarity, it wants to go back to where it's comfortable. So the body starts influencing the mind. And this is where people say, I want you to start your diet tomorrow. Oh, why don't you start working out this evening? You're really never going to change. You're too tired. You have a headache. This doesn't feel right. And this is where people talk themselves out of it. Because if they respond to that thought leads to the same choice, which leads to the same behavior, creates the same experience, produces the same feeling. And then they say, this feels right? No, that feels familiar. So going from one state of mind and body to another state of mind and body, you got to cross a river. And the hardest part about change is not making the same choice as you did the day before. Now, once people understand that they're going to be uncomfortable, then the question is, what thoughts do you want to fire and wire in your brain? What behaviors will you demonstrate in one day? And the act of closing your eyes and rehearsing who you're going to be when you open your eyes begins to install neurological hardware in your brain to look like you've already done it. Now the brain, which is typically a record of the past, now becomes a map to the future. And if you keep doing it, the hardware begins to become a software program. And you start behaving differently. And then if you can teach your body emotionally what the future will feel like, that means then you're not going to wait for your wealth to feel abundant, or your success to feel empowered, or your new relationship to feel love. In fact, the moment you start feeling abundant, you're generating wealth.